Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kim and you're at Kim's Cozy Corner. It's been a minute since we walked over to my neighbor's to look at the different vegetables that I'm growing over there. If you're new to Kim's Cozy Corner, you may not know, but I not only take care of my own garden in my own yard, but I also take care of the garden over at the neighbors. I like to plant the garden up with whatever it is they are interested in eating, and then I get to reap the benefits of anything extra over in the garden. And this garden is starting to flourish, and I've never shared what I'm growing in all of the different beds over here. So we're going to take a moment to do a garden tour for my neighbor's beds. Let me first start by panning the space that we have over here. There are 9 wooden raised beds, and there are 2 Vego garden metal raised beds that we installed this year. And then I have this one raised bed right here that it's just full of flowers. I'm not putting anything in that bed. And we have 2 GreenStalk vertical planters. So this is a really nice size space for my neighbors and for me to enjoy. In this bed right here, I have cool season crops in the front. That's cabbage, cauliflower, and broccoli. And I did have an animal, and I don't know which one, just completely pluck out the plant that should be right there that's missing. I came over here yesterday and I looked, and I have no idea when it left us either. So I'm down to 3 broccoli in this bed instead of 4. In the bed right behind it, we have kind of the same setup, but I have an early cabbage and a later cabbage in the front. And then in the back again, I have 3 broccoli instead of 4, so I have an empty spot just there. Now I will find something to go in both of those empty spots, so no worries there. But it's just interesting to walk out and they're gone. No wither, no remnants. It's as if I left the space on purpose to plant something else. In the back of both beds, I have different types of tomatoes with different trellising systems. Now this is just a traditional trellising system. They come in many different shapes and sizes. And then for tomato cages and that kind of stuff. And then over here, I am using my Mighty Crop disc to support the tomatoes. You can see the first ones are starting to come through at the bottom there, and then they'll grow up, and then I'll add another one, and I have 3 on each one of those. The tomatoes here are all yellow and orange tomatoes. And the tomatoes in this bed are all some type of slicing red tomato. In this bed, just beside it here, I have 2 different types of eggplant in the back. And then I have 2 rows of sweet peppers growing over here. And these are my favorite sweet peppers, Giant Marconi and Thunderbolt. But they're not looking so great over here either, but hopefully they'll bounce back. And behind it, more tomatoes, and let's see what kind we have here. These are all different types of paste tomatoes. In this very next bed, I have green beans growing in the front. I have some collards growing right there beside it, and 4 purple broccoli just next to that. And then guess what? More tomatoes are in the back, and these are all different types of black tomatoes in this bed here. So if you follow me, you know I grow a lot of different types of tomatoes. So I have tomatoes growing in green stalks. I have tomatoes growing in raised beds that are being trellised with cattle panel trellising over in my main garden. And then over here, we're using different types of trellising for the different beds of tomatoes. Now, all of these beds here that I just showed you with the red trellising and then the stakes with the mighty crop trellising, these are all indeterminate tomatoes. They're going to grow and keep growing. They're going to produce and keep producing until the end of the season. In this bed here are different types of greens. I have turnip greens in the back there, which some of those really need to be thinned out. So those actually have purple top turnips. The one right next to it is a turnip green that doesn't produce an edible turnip, but the greens are edible. And then right next to it over here, this is mustard. And again, these are very thick and need to be thinned out. Once I thin them out, they'll get much larger than this. You don't see anything in this bed, but this bed is fully planted out. I have scallop squash in this bed here, and so I'll put a couple pictures of the different types of scallop squash that I have in this bed, as well as cucumbers in the back to go up this cattle panel trellising right here. This next bed has southern peas in here. Crowder peas is the brand that I'm growing in this bed here. They haven't broken ground yet, but they should be getting really close to doing so. And then in the very back are more cucumbers. And I'm showing you pictures of things that you can't see yet. This bed is onions around the outside. And I would have to look at the varieties. I don't remember the varieties around the outside. In the middle, I have all dwarf tomatoes. And so these are tomato plants that only get between 2 and 3 feet tall. Some of them are determinate, some are indeterminate, and some of them are semi-determinate. So some will produce all of the tomatoes at one time. Some of them will put them on over the course of the whole year, and some will give you a large harvest up front and then smaller harvests throughout the year. And then right next to it are some lettuce. Oh, that looks good. Look at that lettuce. And this bed is mostly flowers, but I was able to grab the front of the bed and throw some lettuce in there in the very front. There's one pepper plant in there, and there's one tomato plant in there, and a potato plant is in there now. And I don't know how that got there, but there is a potato plant in there. We'll let it grow, and we'll see just how it's doing. Those are all of the wooden styled raised beds that we're planting in. And the soil in these beds are potting mixes. In the very bottom, there's definitely clay soil. There's no barrier or anything like that. This bed has been in place, from my understanding after talking to my neighbors, for well over 20 years, that they've continued to add on to and build up over the years. So there's no fabric, paper, or anything like that under these beds. And then the top, I would say 4 inches or so, are all different types of potting soils that I've moved over here from pots over the years to improve the soil quality in this space. So now the next 2 raised beds are metal raised beds. These are Vego garden metal raised beds. I believe they're 11 inches tall. So this is the shorter variety. In the main garden, I have the 17-inch beds, but these are the 11-inch beds. And they are set up to 3.5 by 5 feet wide. Both of them are. In this first bed here, onions are growing, and then celery is next in this bed here. So these 2 rows are all celery. Now last year I was trying to grow like 10 celery plants, and I ended up with 50 or more. I had celery coming out my ears, but this year I got it under control. And this is all of the celery that I have planted this year, which is still probably more than what we need, but at least it's all in one place and it's a more manageable supply. And then behind the celery, I have peppers in the very back here. And hopefully I won't need to put any trellising on these peppers. If they start getting too tall, we could put some kind of little stake in there to kind of help support if needed. In the next bed here in the front, we have dragon tongue beans. So it's like a green bean. When you cook it, it turns green, but it's a wider style bean, and my neighbor loves the dragon tongue beans. So we have a couple of rows of those. In the middle, we have potatoes. And here's a picture of the type potatoes that we have. So we have, I believe, this 4 or 5 in here in the middle of this bed. And then in the very back, we have winter squash. On the end down there, that's my Australian butter squash. That's my absolute favorite squash in the world. Australian butter squash tastes like sweet potatoes. There's no hint of an aftertaste or anything else like all of the other, in my mind, winter squash. Even the butternut squash has that just little hint of aftertaste. So I thought I just didn't like winter squash. And then I met the Australian butter squash. So I have it growing in 2 spots in this bed here. One spot has broken the ground, the other one has not. If I don't get anything to come up right here, I'll just take the 2 plants over there, separate them out, and put one in each space. And then right next to it is another squash, kabocha, I believe, or something like that. I don't forget what it's called, but I'll put the text here so you can see it. And it's broken ground in both spots as well. Now, I've never had that particular squash before, but it's gotten great reviews. And it's supposed to also be extremely silky and sweet. And I hear that a lot of chefs really go for that particular type of winter squash. So we're growing that one this year for the neighbors. And yes, we will be trellising our winter squash up a cattle panel trellis. I have been trellising my winter squash for a few years. Usually it's in this bed here, and it goes up over the trellis, down the trellis, across the back of the bed, all the way over to the end of the beds over there. And then we wrap it back around this way. But this year we got it in this bed, and hopefully it'll do well in this spot. The last 2 areas where I have vegetables growing are my green stalks. And this green stalk I'm getting ready to show you, this is the last one that was planted this year, and it is a mixture of things. I have everything from summer squash to peppers to tomatoes. There's lettuce in here, there are herbs in here, a little bit of everything. That's a yellow zucchini right there that's coming up. Most of these tomatoes, and yes, I have tomatoes already because we moved all of the tomato plants that I had indoors outdoors, and we replanted those tomatoes into this tower, and so we are already harvesting tomatoes. In the very top, I have more beans as well. So we're using this tower as our experiment to kind of mix things up a little bit. And this one is the pride and joy. This is the tower that is doing the best right now. We have broccoli that's starting to head up. There are kale in here. I have all red lettuce in the top. Look at the flame of that red lettuce. It's looking good. Now we cut this one and that one back about 5 days ago, and you see they're starting to reproduce. There's another head of broccoli. It's in a shade. There's another head of broccoli starting to head up. And all different types of lettuce as well, besides just the red. I have romaine, I have leaf lettuce, I have iceberg lettuce, many different types of lettuce in this particular GreenStalk vertical planter. Now I have links to everything in the description below. So if you're interested in a GreenStalk, I have links to the GreenStalk below, and I have a coupon code for GreenStalk if you're interested in that. and that's in the description box below. The metal raised beds, the Vego garden metal raised beds, I have a link to that as well in the description below. So any of the products that I like to use, I try to put links below in the description. So including the Mighty Crop style trellising as well. So that's it. That's what's going on over at the neighbors. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I like to show everybody what's going on, and I like to give an update at a minimum once a month with everything between my personal garden, just right behind me here, or the garden at my neighbors. So until next time, and I hope there will be a next time that you join me, Kim, at Kim's Cozy Corner. Bye.